So to start it off, give Freek Staps, our editor-in-chief, a huge hand.
Hi everybody, how are you? Great. Yeah, okay, a lot of thumbs up. So we're really excited to start this part of the program with you. It's our talk show, and I know that everybody here who's in media or works at a brand or at a company is wondering what the future of news and the future of media is going to look like. So we're super excited to have 3 industry leaders here today, and these are absolutely the people that you want to be watching the next couple of years to understand where this business is going. First up, there's the Dutch newspaper NRC Handelsblad. It's arguably the most prominent. I said Handelsblad, right? I even worked there, so you should know that you pronounce it NRC Handelsblad. It's not related or affiliated with the German Handelsblad, just so you know. But it's arguably the most prominent Dutch newspaper, and it's been around since 1828. So how about some legacy there? Here's the editor-in-chief, Peter Vandermeersch. The NOS Journaal, or they have a couple of different names that work for them, but that's the public newscaster is the largest journalist operation in the Netherlands. They have over 600 journalists working at their place, and they have dozens of broadcasts every day on TV, radio, online as well. So here's the deputy editor-in-chief, Giselle van Cann. And there is this really interesting upstart. It's called Lindanieuws. When I say upstart, I should be honest with you and tell you that they have 3.5 million visitors per month already, which makes them one of the largest news publications in Holland. And they do a mix of celebrity news and really serious news. So we'll hear how that works out for them. If for our German friends, if you hear the word Linda in Lindanieuws, that's Linda de Mol for you. Traumhochzeit, no? Here's Merijn Henfling. So thanks to the 3 of you for joining us today. We're very happy that you could do that in the midst of busy news times. And as everybody in communication or in media knows, it's always the best to start with what the audience actually wants. So I'm going to really be needing your help right now. And for that, we have a couple of statements. This is the first statement. I prefer Netflix over news. So envision yourself on a Friday afternoon. It's been a rough week. You've had some tough decisions to make at the office during the week. It's Friday evening, you get home, the kids are in bed, the dishes are done. What do you choose? And I would like to see by a show of hands who prefers Netflix over news at that moment. Please. Okay. Well, since we're all friends here, let's say 70-30. Giselle, since you work at the news, the NOS Journaal, the most famous Dutch evening news at 8 o'clock, what would you choose?
Well, at this point, the way you pose this question, exactly the same. Who wants news on Friday evening? You want to go out? I want to see the show of hands for Monday morning, 8 o'clock. What do you want? Netflix or news?
Okay,
news,
give her that.
Yeah. So it's all about timing.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
Why do you still broadcast at 8 p.m. then?
Well, there's 2 million people that day in, day out at 8 o'clock turn on the TV or turn it on Nederland 1, NPO 1, I must say. So there's still people for whom this is a daily routine to, maybe they've heard what's happened in Houston or they've heard the news, but they want to see it. Mm-hmm. And I think they want to see it brought by NOS in a context, in a selection of the day, is still valuable for a lot of people.
Okay, that's interesting. So you don't have any plans to ever leave that time slot?
Well, ever or never are your words I never use when you talk about the future of news, but no, we would be crazy.
But no,
Yeah.
okay, you would be crazy. Let's look at this one. Facebook is my main source of news or information. Show of hands, please. For who in the audience is Facebook the main source of news or information? I sincerely hope there's not too many Facebook employees here. So, Peter, is that good news to you that that Facebook is not that relevant as a source of news?
Actually, I don't know. Facebook is a channel. So if there is another channel, and apparently then there's other channels, everybody can use whatever they want to use. But it's true that Facebook is a channel. It's not a source of news. Facebook is not making news. Facebook is, as we all know, and all the other ones are aggregating news. And so basically, I'm not so interested in what channel the people use for their news, as long as they read the news. And it's clear that for Facebook, for example, as for Google and others, they're more and more concerned with the sources of news, with organizations like ours, because they need the wonderful word, they need content. And whatever the channel is, it's okay for me.
Okay, so how do you work then within NRC to get a lot of your information on a channel like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter maybe?
We have a whole policy about spreading our news on Facebook, on other channels, because of course for us it's important that people find our news. We think what we make is valuable. We think that as people go, or when people go to at 8 o'clock to watch the news about Houston, that we can add lots. We had a wonderful analysis why the Americans apparently can't cope with this kind of situations, or we have a wonderful analysis the day before yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, why the Dutch football players cannot play anymore. 5,000 words. People are looking for this kind of news. We think it's valuable, and apparently the public is thinking it's valuable. And for us, it's important, of course, to be in all these channels so we can be read.
Yeah. So one of the channels that is one of the publishers on Facebook that is most popular is Lindanieuws, Merijn. What is your thinking behind it?
I guess we're number 3 on Facebook at the moment, and we grew fast thanks to Facebook. Actually, that's how we started. We started as a social news website, probably. And what was your question? Your question is
well, what's the thinking behind it? If Peter says it's just a channel, so does that mean that if people stop using Facebook for news, that you're changing over to Insta, or?
Yeah, we're shifting to places where people are at the moment, but we try not to be dependent only on Facebook, of course. But we try to make shareable stories, and stories can be shared on any platform. And what we see at the moment that Facebook is not anymore the most important place for. It's still very important, but it's not the one and only place. Okay. The way how people find us.
What do you see happening? Where are we going?
People started to have email newsletters. That's something. People started to watch. We have an app for it, Linda TV, Linda Television. So they use this app just to watch television programs, to watch small video content. So that's what people are doing. And also, of course, Instagram and Snapchat, etc.
Okay, I like the idea that this old-fashioned thing of email newsletters still work for a lot of news publications.
Yeah, it works. It works better and better, actually. Yeah.
Do you know why that is? Does any of you know? Why does the newsletter work so well?
I don't know why, but as like all the news organizations in the world, I think we see it works excellent, and we all have like 30 or 40 these days. But it's clear that for an organization like ours, it's wonderful that you can reach a targeted public which is really interested, for example, in politics, and that you can send them every day or twice or 3 times a day this email letter. It's clear there's a need out there for that kind of formats.
Yeah. Let's take a look at millennials. It's always fun, especially if you're 41 years old, to point the finger at millennials for everything that goes wrong. But millennials just aren't interested in the news anymore, is what they say. Anybody agree? There's one very brave woman over here. So millennials, you're saying, are interested in the news. Is that what you're seeing as well, Giselle?
Well, it's a matter of debate, and I think what's shifting is what's your definition of news? And for me, that is the big thing. That's what's changing. And millennials, of course, they have an interest in news, and but maybe not in the traditional way that traditional news organizations used to present it. Mm-hmm. So if you develop your formats and the way you select and the timing and how it looks, of course they're interested in news. I think Vice is showing that. You see very spikes in 2 kind of things. One is live news, which is for us a very important issue on TV, radio, but we're actually learning and growing the lives we do in social media or online. And I think millennials also have a keen interest in that. And the second kind of news I see them interested in is something they make that helps them understand the world and what's going on. So.
So that you're touching on exactly on.
What am I touching on?
Thank you for that. Because what you're touching on is if the media consumer needs or likes his news upbeat and funny.
No, I'm not touching on that. No.
The NOS, are you not looking for a right mix between serious and lightheartedness, or what is your thinking?
Well, maybe we do that, but that's not the point I was trying to make, because I think millennials are not especially interested in lighthearted news. I think they are really interested in what's going on in Syria or what's going on in Charlottesville. Yeah. It strikes a chord with them. So, no, it's not just fun and games.
And actually, I don't think it's wrong to have news upbeat and funny. And of course, it all depends on how far you go. And but we had in this country, we had a debate because it's on the table of the formation of the government at this moment about the Wilhelmus, and if people would have to sing it again or learn it again. Or well, we brought the whole story in the form of a quiz. So what do you know about the Wilhelmus? I thought this was a nice, upbeat format to bring that story. And so why shouldn't you do it? Why shouldn't you tell people in a funny and upbeat way how politics are working or how serious? So I really think that's the period that serious organizations like ours are afraid of bringing news in that way. That period is far behind us, and that we see that it's not only the millennials who are interested in that kind of formats, but also our readers of 57 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it's not that they don't like the information, they don't need the information or the news, because they really do. It's the way you present it.
I think the problem with millennials is not that there wouldn't be interest in news. For us, for example, the issue is that they're not prepared to pay for news. So there's one advantage with millennials: they grow older. So that's a good thing. So that's and then hopefully we.
What do you expect them to pay then?
Well, we see that more and more people are willing to pay, and it's also because they're willing to pay more and more for music services, for television, paid for television, and so we indeed see that there are models in which an organization like ours is really dependent from the money the reader is willing to pay. We have a big news organization. 85% of our money is coming from readers, only 15% from advertisers. So these readers and the willingness of readers to pay is for us a crucial issue for the next couple of years, the next decennia.
How did that change the measure in which your revenue came from advertisers and from the readers?
It came from 50-50 in the news industry in Holland in general, from 50-50 in, let's say, the 70s, the 80s. Then newspapers in this country were 50% advertising from the turnover, 50% readers. Now it's 85-15. It's a good thing. We're not dependent from advertisers. It's good that you're dependent for your readers, that you have to fight for your readers, that you need these people indeed, thinking that you add so much value that they say we're willing to pay €1 a day for that news organization.
Can I have a question? Can I ask you
sure.
What's the most important for you, the printed newspaper or the website?
These days you can't.
Where's your focus?
No, the focus is we have an organization which is making in the first place the website. And all the journalists are working for the website. And then basically in the evening there is a team of sub-editors coming to the newspaper and they pick from that website the articles they think are, you have to put in the bundle the newspaper. So since the last 3-4 years our website is much more important than the paper. And the paper will disappear one day or another. Is it 7 years? Is it 10 years? I don't know. The Saturday paper will stay for a long time, more as a weekly. But during the week, why should you read paper if you can have it on your mobile phone?
7 years, 10 years. Anybody scared by that? Because I would, as a personal request, can you try to hold on a little longer? I really like it.
Maybe Freek, for you it's 15 years. But it's not important if we can make a paper.
Yeah.
If it's important that we can generate the money to make serious journalism.
Yeah.
That's so. When I'm awake at night, it's not for that paper. If it's better on a mobile or on an iPad or whatever will come the next couple of years. If the paper disappears, it's not important. If journalism would disappear because people are not willing to pay for it anymore, or we can't find other models, is it the public money, or is it advertiser, or is it at this moment charity newspapers like ours, like the New York Times, like the Washington Post, like NRC, like the Volkskrant, think that we will be dependent for many years of the subscription money or the readers' income of our organizations.
Oh, that's a very heartfelt plea from Peter there. Now let's see what you think about that. Should users pay for quality journalism? Who agrees with that? I'm saying 50-50. Keep up your hands if you had, because now I want to change the question to, are you paying for quality journalism? So more people are paying than they think they need to pay. That's funny. Does if I ask the question, should you pay for your products in the supermarket, put up the same amount of hands? What does this teach you?
Yeah, but that's what we see. People are willing to pay more and more. You know, it's Blendel, it's the correspondent, and there are, I don't know if it's only correspondents, but that's quite in-depth journalism, and young people, millennials, are paying for it. So
actually, I think also people are more willing to pay for journalism because journalism has gotten better across the board the last few years. Is my opinion.
It's just a really good product.
Mm-hmm. It's gotten better, yeah.
But speaking about that product, there are some people who say that it's all fake news. That's basically everything is fake news, especially if you don't like what's being written. I'm curious to hear, are there people here who agree with this statement?
Good public.
So you can all stay. Is there something like fake news to you? Who agrees to that? There is something like fake news. What do you do against fake news?
Well, I think I'm debating with myself still about fake news because fake news is fake news in itself, I think, sometimes. Because, if you actually start researching how much fake news have we had, the fingers of one hand, I think you can find it. It has gotten to be an etiquette, a line, a ticket for everything you don't agree with. Yeah. And of course, because everybody keeps repeating in bars and cafes and on TV and in press rooms in Washington, fake news every day, everybody's going to start to believe it. Yes, journalists make mistakes, so there is news that turns out to be wrong. But actually, deliberately putting out fake news, I think that is not such a big phenomenon, actually.
Yeah.
Merijn, do you
Now there is some fake news during elections. I saw some fake news about politicians, and this fake news that wasn't written by us, we didn't write it, but like independent sites or just people on Twitter, and that can attract a large audience. So that's kind of dangerous. But then it's up to us to tell the real story and to correct it and to check everything.
I agree with you. I think it's a bit strange that people like us are the whole time interrogated up fake news. And we are the news organizations, and we make lots of mistakes. Every day we make mistakes. But we are the news organizations which are scrutinized the most of all. We have an ombudsman who is writing every week an article about how bad we are, or who is looking at us very much in detail, while the people who are putting out the fake news in lots of cases, and not saying, once again, I'm not saying we don't make mistakes, but they're not interrogated about that. So we, strangely enough, the big news organizations have to defend themselves against fake news the whole time, while they are not the origin of the fake news.
Well, it's very effective because it eats away the confidence
Precisely.
in media in general.
Yeah. Because I know confidence, the confidence of your readers in your product is I know it's a big thing for you. How do you work with that then? How do you restore that confidence, or actually how do you keep the confidence?
It's difficult to do it, and every mistake we make is a mistake which we shouldn't have made. So I think there's one word, it's being transparent. And it's being transparent the whole time, telling why we do what, telling when we make mistakes, correcting whatever mistakes we have made, having an ombudsman, talking to the readers about it, being very honest. But the strange thing is that in lots of cases, because you're so honest about your mistakes, people say, you are fake news, and so that you're in a very difficult circle. At the other hand, we see indeed that the confidence in NOS, the confidence in NRC, in Volkskrant, in big news organizations, in lots of cases, stay on a very high level. So.
Do you ever hear it, Merijn? Do you ever get emails or whatever you get from your readers complaining about this is fake?
No, that's rarely what we hear. We get a lot of critic also, and people think a lot of things of us, and we have this enormous Facebook fan base also. Yeah. And they're always pointing out and saying, Linda de Mol wouldn't like this or something like that. But
there's nothing fake about Linda de Mol.
No, nothing. And people also think Linda Mol is in the office
She's
working
actually writing.
Yeah, she's writing stories. Yeah. So that's what we get a lot, but that's part of the job.
And what does she think about it?
Yeah, she's really she's one of our most engaged readers actually. She's really she loves it, and she's one of them, I think, heavy users of our app, and I'm in monthly, weekly contact with her, and she gives her opinions and likes it.
Okay. And another question on a totally different subject, but there's a lot of companies that and brands that actually want to be in the news. Giselle, how do you get to be in the news? How do you get to be in a
Do I have to
restaurant?
explain that to people who work at DEPT? I don't think so, do I? How do you get to be in the news as a company? That's not a question we ask ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Have a good story. That's it.
Well, yeah.
Fuck things up, then you're in the news.
Yeah.
That's always the best way, right?
Yeah.
So is there, if you think like that, so because a lot of companies think that, hey, we only get to be in the news if we fuck things up. So their answer sometimes is, hey, why don't we tell our story ourselves then?
But
What do you think about that?
well, the first question I would ask is why do you want to be in the news as a company? What's your goal? So and if the goal is to make more turnover, well, yeah, then you have to think again if you want to be in the news. And if then there's another question: if companies are starting to write their own stories, yeah, fine with me, but I don't know if that's effective. I don't really have an opinion about that, but I do see a tendency, not specifically in companies, but also in companies and also in politics, to want to own your story, and there's a certain disintermediation to communicate more directly with the audience, helped by all kinds of social media.
But I partly agree with what you said, Freek, that, and I said it, fuck things up, then you're in the news, and of course that's a danger. Because imagine that you're coming from Mars and you have one source about life on Earth, and that's today's copy of the Telegraaf. Then you really have a very strange idea about the world, how the world, because politicians can't form a government, football players can't play football. In companies there is lots of fraud, and of course that's not the reality. Apart from football players, that's not the reality. So it's true that, and in lots of editorial organizations like ours, I think, we really know that we have to do more than tell the stories of people who fuck up. We also have to tell other stories. And for example, one of my classical examples is that whenever we write about a murder in Holland, we have to tell that the murder rate in this country the last 20 years is going down and down and down. So we shouldn't pretend that this is a dangerous country where you can be murdered on the corner of the street every day. So that's so we have to find, and lots of news organizations are trying to have these both sides of the middle, to find a better scope of telling the fucked up stories and the other stories. I'm sure.
Yeah, but in addition to that, for us at NOS Journaal, being a public broadcaster, we have to be very careful with doing a story on one company, for instance, because we get fined by the Commissariat for the Media, because even if we have logos, all these PR people of companies, they try to put our reporters in front of big logos, and and if we do that, we get fined. So there's
So if you write about one company, you feel an obligation to give.
No, that's not how it works. No, it's just.
How would it work for you?
Well, that we are keen on telling the story of the company, but not the story of the company. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's not the PR story, but the reason why you're there, why it's relevant for people.
Yeah.
And which is not always exactly the storyline the company has in mind.
So hearing this, I'm wondering what you think about this. Sometimes companies and brands say, we know our own products and we know our own company much better than a journalist would. I'm wondering who would agree to this? Does a company know its own company better than a journalist?
But of course the companies and the brands know more about their subject than journalists do. Fortunately, I would say, because if not, they're in trouble. But will they bring out the truth about their company? We had last Saturday, we had a big story about fraud on Schiphol. Well, Schiphol didn't come out saying, used to we have a problem. No, we found it out. They know much more even now about that fraudulent case than we do. They didn't bring it out, and that's our job to do it.
So if we skip to the final statement, then I'm wondering how you see this all playing out. Merijn, it says in 5 years, most of the largest brands have become media themselves. Do you see this happening as well? Are people knocking on Lindanieuws' doors and saying, hey, we're going to do this ourselves?
No, that's not what they're saying. They want to collaborate. And we have advertorials, but that's clearly pointed out. This is an advertorial, so it's not editorial stuff. But a lot of companies do want it, but I think they do it in a very PR way still.
Okay.
And yeah, as long as they can attract public with it, I'm fine. But I think that won't work. So I think it's something that's happening. You see it with all famous people, of course. They use their social media as media tool to brand themselves. So I think this is a development.
Do you agree with this?
Yes, I think it's happening now, not in 5 years.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, well...
I don't think it's a problem.
Why not?
I really think we can... Well, these companies, let them be their media themselves. Let them tell their stories. These stories can really be very good, very nice to read, very truthful. And we have another job. And we have to see that it's another job. And then, of course, then we go back to the whole discussion about fake news. Whenever, did they tell the whole story? Did they tell? But I think it's interesting that more and more companies are doing this. And they're also adding value to whatever we are doing. So I think these two worlds can coexist in a really good way.
Yeah, on one condition, that companies do not close the door for questions from journalists, which you see happening as well.
But then we break in.
We will, yes.
So in 5 years then, a lot of will have changed. What are you guys doing in 5 years?
Personally, or with NOS?
Well, where do you see your job going?
Well, what I find now is that I have to spend a lot of energy to keep up my skills to change to the changing world around me. So that's what I'll be doing, quicker and quicker and quicker.
Okay, Peter.
Well, having walked around here, I want to become the boss of DEPT.
Marijn.
We started with this upbeat news site, and I see that people are more and more likely to read longer stories, quality articles, and also video. So I think that's the next thing.
Okay. Well, a big thank you to you all. I'm really happy to hear that you're very upbeat about the need for quality journalism, also in millennials. So it's been our honor. Let's give them a big hand and thank you.